Dude, look at all these VCR tapes. This one says the age of anxiety.
Is that my entire high school career?
Oh, I remember. This is the 8-year war years between World War I and World War II that was marked by changes in all aspects of life and uncertainty. It lasted from 1918 to 1939.
Nerd. It looks like a recording of a TV broadcast. Do you want to watch it?
Sure, since you don't have cable.
Hello and good evening on this lovely Monday night. I'm your host, Josephine.
And I'm your co-host, Tina.
We begin tonight's broadcast with news of the formation of a National Organization for Peace, followed by information on the tense situation in Russia and reports of a growing trend towards fascism in Italy and Germany. This is Channel 12 Ox News.
Following the results of the Paris Peace Conference, many weakened European nations banded together to form the League of Nations. They renounced war and tried to promote peaceful settlements and self-determination.
Well, while that's happening mostly in Western Europe, Russia turned to communism to solve its problems. The Civil War in 1918 that ended with the Bolsheviks taking power also introduced war communism, leading to a decline in industry and inflation. Lenin temporarily restored market economy, but the crash in 1929 really showed on a global level the ineffectiveness of capitalism. Stalin would replace that with his 5-year plan, encouraging industrial growth and collectivization at the expense of the individual, going as far as murder to eliminate opposition.
Sounds barbaric, Josephine. Reports are showing of a similar phenomenon happening in Italy and Germany, with more and more citizens turning towards fascist thought. Fascism, the newest political thought trend, encourages chauvinism, xenophobia, and a devotion to a strong military state. The statistics show that Italian and German communities focus much more heavily on ethnic purity at this time.
With ethnic purity comes anti-Semitism, a long-time problem of Europe. A bad time to be a Jew living in Germany or Italy, which is why the immigration rates increased over the last few years. Of course, we aren't without our own anti-Semitic problems now, but we certainly have improved. Join us tomorrow as we report the latest and most current news. Reporting to you live from Channel 12 Ox News.
So basically, Russia was faced with civil war between the Bolsheviks and the anti-Bolsheviks, and Stalin ended up taking power.
Yeah, and fascism grew in Italy and Germany.
Hello everyone, good evening. I'm your host Alice. Today we have a very special guest speaker here to discuss the crash of 1929 that offset a global crisis and its effects. This is Tina. She is an economic expert who has come today to share insight on the current global depression. So Tina, can you give us some background on the economic collapse and how it first came about?
Well, the European economy has been heavily dependent on loans from the United States, as well as the heavy industrialization of Germany in order to prosper for many years now. Since the end of the Great War and the implementation of the Treaty of Versailles, Germany has faced great economic difficulty, such as overproduction in agriculture caused by the return of farmers to their land, or excessive war reparations that were highly costly.
And the United States?
The United States prospered until the crash of 1929, in which the booming stock market quickly declined and fell due to panic from investors, which caused inflation and high unemployment rates. This was a major event, since many economies throughout the world were dependent on American finances. When the United States fell into economic struggles, so did a large percentage of the rest of the world.
So how are we trying to combat this and get through the times?
Well, the English economist Keynes has proposed an idea of promoting public works projects throughout the government in order to increase employment. And Roosevelt in the United States has enacted the New Deal, a series of programs designed to reform the economy and provide aid to those affected.
Interesting. So how does this affect the personal lives of the citizens?
The global depression over the past few years have actually drastically affected social life. Due to economic difficulties, people have formed shantytowns with crude living conditions, and the marriage, childbirth, and divorce rates are rapidly decreasing. Social class tensions are also now more defined than ever before, caused by large gaps between the economic status of the high class and the low class.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Tina, for coming on our show. I'm sure all our viewers have learned a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, the Great Depression, that period of economic despair after World War I, right?
Yeah, it caused a lot of financial, social problems, and political problems throughout the world. Hello and welcome to the annual auction for art and literature. This year, our collection will be from the era of 1918 to 1939, a very special time for the collectors of fine arts. During this era, Europeans began to question traditional institutions. Religious authorities questioned their methods of practice, leading to attacks on the idea of progress in Christianity. Meanwhile, the destruction that technology brought in the Great War caused opposition against technology. Some very notable works have been produced and many are up for bid today.
We will be starting off the day by presenting some written works. For the collector with an interest in religious uncertainty, we have a copy of Epistle of the Romans by Karl Barth, which reintroduces concepts of original sin. For those with a penchant for political thought, we have Revolt of the Masses by Jose Ortega Gasset, a must-own for anyone who is disillusioned with democracy.
If you're a fan of scientific thought, might I suggest Heisenberg's paper about the quantum theoretical reinterpretation of kinetic and mechanical relationships? We have a rare printed edition of his uncertainty principles, a once-in-a-lifetime grab. Alternatively, we have many of Sigmund Freud's works on psychoanalysis available.
Of course, a humanities-based auction without works on existentialism isn't really an auction at all. James Joyce's great novel Ulysses is also in the collection.
Moving on to the paintings we have with us. The really unique thing about the paintings of this time period was the rejection of reality. The generation that grew up during war really broke away from traditional types of good art and created new forms such as Expressionism, Cubism, Abstractionism, Dadaism, and Surrealism. Artists also incorporated their own messages well into their paintings, in particular Diego Rivera's political art pieces. We happen to have the works of many artists such as Gauguin, Degas, and even a rare chance to own a Picasso. As this is a blind auction, be sure to check out the catalog that comes with your bidding envelopes to see our full selection.
Tomorrow we'll begin the property auctions. We have many buildings with a modern and efficient international building style to bid on. Many of these buildings come from the architects and designers of the Bauhaus Institution, so be sure to check in again tomorrow.
Seems like people were inspired by the trauma of war to create new art. I could do that. I'm inspired by the trauma of school.
They made new religious and scientific ideas. Can you do that?
Nah.
My organization, the Indian National Congress, is officially launching the non-cooperation and civil disobedience movements under Mohandas K. Gandhi. I'm tired of British rule. I'm boycotting all British institutions. I'm also going to impose the Indian Act, which will create a bicameral legislature and a self-governing act under the British.
Why? You don't even have any problems. In my country, nationalists under Jiang Jieshi are going against the communists under Mao Zedong. Nationalists are calling for a republic democracy, and the communists are rallying for the growth of socialism. Then they finally emerged under Mao Zedong as a whole. Meanwhile, Japan started acting up, causing the Mukden incident, and violated the Cologne-Briand Pact.
Yeah, but at least you have the Washington Naval Conference to help you, which will prevent political conflict in your region. They signed like 4 different treaties there.
That conference didn't even help me. It only consolidated Japan's power over Manchuria and allowed them to dominate in business there.
Was that a reality TV show with countries as characters?
That's a weird way to show the Indian independence movement and the struggles that the Chinese faced in civil war between these political parties. Today, on Nationalism Geographic, we will explore the political and economic problems that plague Africa. After World War I, the European powers were weakened as they faced internal problems. Imperial nations gradually drew their authority away from colonies in Africa. The African economy is export-based, and integration is dependent on the creation of infrastructures. Many industries of the African economy relies on forced labor that led to mass migrations in the African continent. This brought impoverishment and shifts in social order. Women and children turned towards traditionally male jobs due to the decline of agriculture. In the present, Africans are trying to organize nationalism to oppose the Europeans. Through a new class of leaders, the introduction of new ideas and thoughts caused the spread of African nationalism. Most African nationalism is based on ethnicity, religion, and languages. Race is also a main concept that nationalists use as part of their ideology, which brought the development of Pan-Africanism, encouraging the African solidarity worldwide.
They made a documentary about Africa?
Yeah, just to summarize that they were going through nationalism and starting to resist European authority, I guess. We interrupt your regular broadcast with this breaking news. In a controversial move, Lázaro Cárdenas, the president of Mexico, has just announced that the Mexican government will be nationalizing the oil industry, financially distressing many foreign investors and challenging the American good neighbor policy.
The good neighbor policy, along with dollar diplomacy, was adopted as an alternative foreign policy. For example, the Convention on the Rights and the Duties of States declared that no state has the right to intervene in the internal or external affairs of another.
This is not the first time American foreign tactics have come under attack. In Nicaragua, the U.S. established the National Guard to oppose Augusto Cesar Sandino's resistance. After Sandino was assassinated, Anastasio Somoza Garcia came to power and maintained Nicaragua's alliance with the U.S. The U.S. came under fire for their heavy involvement and usage of military might to subdue Nicaragua.
Additionally, several U.S. sweetheart treaties have guaranteed U.S. financial control of the Caribbean economies, as it caused a decline in prices of exports and increased unemployment rates in the Caribbean. Tariffs and restrictions on foreign trade have caused complaints from businesses and citizens alike.
Well, that was interesting.
Interesting. Television back in the day was so strange and everything revolved around current events.
Yeah, I think it's because when countries went to war, all aspects of life were involved. It must have carried through the interwar years.
Well, I see why it's called age of anxiety now. They face so many challenges and problems.
I still think the name fits my high school career more.